Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee will explore all these and more on Eros Evolution on OMTimes Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Eros Evolution. This is where sexuality and spirituality meets. And this is Dr. Martha Tara Lee. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. That's EROS coaching.com. And in today's show, we're talking about how to worship the goddess and keep your balls. And this is also the book title by David Bruce Leonard. He's the author and Chinese medicine practitioner, and he'll be discussing Rivers of Love. It's an intimate, therapeutic bodywork for lovers, and Shadow of Love, which is about maintaining emotional integrity in sexual relationships. He will be also touching on today's show the concept of sacred yes, sacred no, the connections between sacred sexuality, self-defense, and the human nervous system. So a little bit more about our guest today. David Bruce Leonard is an acupuncturist, tropical plant medicine specialist, martial artist, and author. He's a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine, as I mentioned. He's also a medical herbalist, acupuncturist, martial artist, and author, and is engaged in sacred sexuality and Daoist practices for all of his adult life. He's the author of the book, How to Worship the Goddess and Keep Your Balls, A Man's Guide to Sacred Sex, and he studies, teaches, and lectures internationally. He refers to his sacred sexuality classes for couples called Rivers of Love as Sacred Yes, and his self-protection classes called Fast Defense as Sacred No. These ideas are drawn from his personal belief that you can't say yes if you can't say no. His work focuses on the creation and nurturance of the healthy masculine and feminine practices that abide in all of us. You can find him at his website, sacredriversoflove.com. So welcome to the show today, David.
Thank you, Martha. How are you?
I'm great. It's 4 a.m. in Singapore, and I am very grateful to have you. I've read your book. I loved it, and I have been looking forward to having you on the show for quite some weeks now. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. You are so welcome. 4 a.m. You are a trooper.
Yeah, it's a good time because the house is quiet. And
right.
So tell us what led you to have this unique, very unique background.
Well, I've always been interested in sexuality my whole life, my whole adult life, and I've been doing Daoist practices most of my adult life. I was always very curious as a teenager, and I'm 60 years old, so that was a while ago. And I became a practitioner of Chinese medicine and a body worker, and I began to realize that when I was working with a partner or a lover in an aroused state, that the body would open up. So in my clinical practice, it was different. It might take a long time for the body to open up, to shift. But when I was with the lover, the body shifted very quickly. So I started exploring that, and I started merging the Daoist sexual practices with deep tissue body work and Qigong, and this is what I came up with.
That's awesome. And by doing all these practices, do you really feel that it has helped you with your personal relationship with your sexuality as well?
Absolutely. Well, the Daoist practices especially, yeah, absolutely. And one of the good things about getting older is that I've become more patient and a lot more self-aware. You know, as a man, when we're younger men, we're often impatient and grabby, and our sexuality is very fiery. But if we're wise and we plan our life carefully and we're conscious of what our partners need, we can channel that and control it. And yeah, absolutely, it's been extremely helpful, and it's been very exciting. It's been very exciting to teach people this work and to watch them transform. You know, I teach couples, so I'll help couples. I teach couples how to do body work on each other in aroused states, and it opens the heart, and it improves health, and it really creates a very deep connection for partners. So I'm really enjoying the work.
Beautiful. And you mentioned that this is very deep work. How can sexual arousal, in your opinion, be therapeutic?
Well, there's a bunch of ways, I think. I think when we are sexually aroused, we're highly suggestible because we're in a very parasympathetic state. So hypnosis and a lot of our learning is created in a deep parasympathetic state. You know, there's two parts to the nervous system. There's the sympathetic nervous system, which is called fight, flight, or freeze. And then there's the parasympathetic nervous system, which is called rest and digest, or it's also called feed and make love, or feed and fornicate. And when we're in a parasympathetic state, both our bodies and minds open up profoundly. Same thing as in meditation. Meditation is a very parasympathetic state. So when we're sexually aroused, we're much more vulnerable, I mean, by definition, and we're much more open to changing both our mind, our psyche, our scripting, but also our bodies and our physiology and what Wilhelm Reich called body armor. And the Daoists knew this. The Daoists knew that there was a kind of Taoist body work which was different than what I do, but it was working with the fascia and stretching and watching where the body would not open when people are breathing. So I think there's a lot of potential for this, and I'm just very excited about the work.
Okay. I'm hearing that when we are sexually aroused, we are more suggestible and our body is open, which opens up possibilities of healing for us. And anything else that you would like to elaborate on?
Yeah, I found that there's the Chinese have what they call the muscle channels, which are like the meridians, but they're more structural in the body, less energetic. And it might, there's a when you open the muscle channels, you open everything in the body. You open everything. You open the psyche. You open the whole system becomes energized and relaxed, and it not only does it feel good, but it's a very powerful way to not only bond, but to create health. The purpose of Taoist practices, the way I was taught them, or one of the purposes, was to bring Jing to Shen. And Jing is life essence, which is stored in the pelvis, and in men and women. And Shen is awareness, which is in the heart, which is in the chest, but also is revealed in the eyes. So in arousal, as well as doing deep tissue body work, we have practices that will bring Jing to Shen, will merge Jing with Shen. Shen is also has a similar character to the Chinese word for God or deity. So when we bring our aroused body or our arousal body up from the pelvis into the heart, it brings our animal or our life force up into the higher parts of ourselves, and that's really a powerful thing when we can merge both the part of ourselves that we think of as lower or more animalistic with our God self or our higher self. That's a very powerful practice.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all this. It's fascinating for me because even though I'm Chinese and all this came from my Chinese heritage, I actually know very little about it. And as a sexologist, I am aware of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, and it is interesting to hear it from you from a different perspective, how when our body is open, then our whole psyche is open, and there's a lot of things that you are mentioning here, which is really profound. What I'm finding that I'm very curious about is how people who are untrained, for listeners out there, what they can immediately do to begin to do these practices at home. So we'll talk more about this after the break.
Fantastic.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, I'm Kelly Fox, host and astrologer of The Astrology Show. Each week, I'll give you access to the current transits, which are a valuable tool that provide astrological information to help unlock the potential each of us has. Understanding the stars can help steer us in the right direction to make better informed choices. So if you're wondering what's going to happen in your week ahead, be sure to tune in to The Astrology Show for guidance. Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
It's 6:42 p.m. Time for Steve Plato and his son Dylan to do the dishes. They talk about everything from the yuckiness of girls to the awesomeness of his soccer team. Sometimes they don't talk at all. Then, hey! The dreaded splash fight. It's Dad o'clock, and it's the best time of the day. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
And you're listening to the OMTimes Radio. You're listening to Arrow's Evolution on the OMTimes Radio Network, and you can share the show with your friends by going to this link, omtimes.com/mobile. With this link, you will be able to listen to the show without needing to download any app. So that's omtimes.com/mobile. That makes everything really convenient for everyone concerned. We are talking about how to worship the goddess and to keep your balls. And this is also the book title of our guest today, David Bruce Leonard. We are talking about the fact that he actually has introduced Rivers of Life, which is an intimate therapeutic bodywork for lovers, and he was explaining the benefits of this therapeutic work when one is sexually aroused before the break. And you can check out his work at sacredriversoflove.com. So, David, I want to find out from you, for listeners out there who are now interested in what they can do at home to start opening up their bodies and activate their meridian channels, what can the layperson begin to do?
Well, that's a really good question. I think, there's a number of things. I think one piece is most of the people I know, myself included, tend to get into habits with our sexuality. So we have things that turn us on, and we have our little recipe or our formula. And when we find a partner whose formula matches ours, we think it's good sex, and it is good sex. It's exciting. And when we find a partner whose formula does or recipe doesn't match ours, we think it's bad sex. And I think it's wonderful, and it's really good to find a partner that we match with sexually, but I think it's also really important to stretch a little bit and to notice, especially for us as men. You know, we tend to have things that turn us on, and we tend to chase those things. But I think that's just one channel. You know, when we have just one channel in our lovemaking, I think we're limited. But if we can just relax a bit and stretch and not have to perform so much, and just really notice, using sex also as a meditation, so that we have lots of channels. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We have many channels. So I can have a channel where I can be really aggressive and nasty and down and dirty. And I can also have a channel where I'm really sensitive and soft and intimate. Or maybe a channel where I'm focusing just on my pelvis, or I'm focusing just on my spine, or, you know, there's so many possibilities with sexuality. And I think we overlook that. So, you know, people at home can just notice where they feel stuck in sexuality and just lean into that. Something else I think we can do is to notice our masculine and our feminine side. Each of us has a masculine and feminine side, and to honor that. In men, the masculine side tends to be more predominant. And so in men, our positive pole is in our pelvis. Women, their feminine pole tends to predominate, and their positive pole is in their chest. You follow me? Yeah. So a man, and a woman, her negative pole is in her pelvis, and a man, his negative pole is in his chest. So if I meet a woman and I like her, right, my positive pole wants to go to her negative pole. I want to go straight to her pelvis. When a woman meets me and she likes me, her positive pole, which is in her chest, wants to go straight from my negative pole, which is in my chest. And that's my heart. So men tend to want to go for the pelvis, and women tend to want to go for the heart. Now, some women are more masculine and some men are more feminine, but I'm generalizing here. Yeah. So if I'm a man or I'm a masculine-dominated person and I want to get to a woman's pelvis, I best go through her chest, through her heart. If a woman wants to get to my heart or my chest, my negative pole, she best go through my pelvis. So I want to go down in her chest and then down, and she wants to go into my pelvis and then up, and that creates a circuit. That creates a very powerful connection. So if we understand our masculine and feminine polarities better, we can understand how to navigate our partner if we're heterosexual, or even if we're not heterosexual. So in Rivers of Love, when a man is giving to a woman, because what we do is a ceremony. It's a ceremony where one partner gives to another. So when a man gives to a woman, we do what we call circling in for a landing. So as a man, the part I want to touch first, I touch last. So as I want to touch her pelvis first, that's the last place I touch. We circle in for a landing. When a woman is giving to a man, we do what we call spiraling out for a takeoff. She starts at the pelvis and works out towards the heart. So each person gets what they want in that gift. And then I think the third thing we can do, people at home can do, is to take a look at their shadow. The shadow is the parts of ourselves that we deny, avoid, and repress. So my shadow is the parts of myself I don't like, I don't want to look at. But leaning into that shadow and really self-confronting can be a very powerful way to create intimacy and also deep spiritual and psychological health. So I think those are three things that people can do at home. Does that make sense?
Beautiful. Yes, it's making a lot of sense for me. And I love what you're sharing. It's actually highly profound. And I'm just very curious why you would call the side that we have aggressive, the side that we have that's sensitive, our pelvis as spine, all these as channels. Are they the
why
same
would I call
as
them
neural
channels?
connections? Yeah, are they the same as neural connections?
I suppose they are. I hadn't thought about it. I'm sure there are neural connections there, right? Because everybody's connected by the nerve. Everything is connected by the nervous system. Yeah, and I think that the models are different. Like a Chinese energetic model is going to be different than a Western model, but we need to be bilingual. We need to be trilingual. You know, we don't want to speak one language. You know, science is it's an awesome language. I love science. Science is fantastic. But there's other languages. There's the language of spirituality. There's the language of Chinese medicine, which is profound. So I think they don't translate directly across. Just like in Chinese, there's some things that are difficult to say in English. And in English, there's some things that are difficult to say in Chinese. In science, there's some things that are difficult to say in TCM or Chinese medicine, and in Chinese medicine there's things that are difficult to say in science, you know. So I think the more languages we can speak, I mean, medicine is a language, culture is a language. The more languages we can speak, the richer our perception of the world can be. And no one language defines reality. No language corners the market on reality. They're just different interpretations of something that's really infinite, which is the natural world.
That's beautiful. I love these practices that you are sharing, and it's a little bit difficult for people to understand if they're trying to imagine how to make it work. So what you're saying, just to make it clearer for people, is that as long as they have the intention, then the energy in the body should just follow. So what the women, for instance,
well, I think
to touch first, to touch last.
Yeah, for our partners, yeah, absolutely. So if a man wants to arouse a woman, he should go very, very, very slow. And the slower the better. And very, very, very sensual and romantic. He wants to get to her pelvis, but he needs to go through her heart. Her heart is rich and beautiful and colorful, and he needs to be gentle. If a woman wants to get to a man, she wants to get to his heart, she can go through his pelvis. So she can be perhaps a little nastier, a little more aggressive. And it's tricky because, you know, because some men judge that as negative. But I think a man that's worth anything is going to be aware of his partner's sensitivity and honor her, you know. So for people at home, what I'm suggesting they do is that they experiment. They play with it. In How to Worship the Goddess and Keep Your Balls, we have what we call infinity practices. It's right at the end of the book. And these are practices. They're ways to just to explore sexuality without making it a formula or a recipe. So we have three things. We have one we call infinite hugging, where you just hold the person. And you just stay held, and you just hug, and you just stay that way. And you don't have to go anywhere. It doesn't have to get into anything. It doesn't have to be sexual. But you just hug, and you hold, and you just watch what comes up. And the high desire partner is going to cling, and the low desire partner is going to want to push away. You just stay there. that is as good as a glass of wine at the end of the day, or a joint. It's very relaxing. You can. Another thing we have, what we call infinite kissing, where you just kiss, and you just kiss to kiss. It's a meditation. And so you just kiss, and you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go to sex. You just let it be what it is. And you use it as a meditation. You explore each other's mouths. What happens? What happens if I nibble? You know, and just noticing and just relaxing the body and just drifting into that space can be very powerful. And then the final infinity practice is done naked, and we lie in a scissor position. So the lights are on, both people are naked, they're in a scissor position where the legs are crossed over. I don't know if you know what I mean. It's shaped like an L or an X. And the penis is in the vagina, but it's soft. So you moisten the penis and you put it in the vagina, you lubricate, and you just lie there. And that's all you do. And you look at each other and the lights are on and you just connect. And you don't chase pleasure. So if you get an erection, that's fine. If you have sex, that's fine, but you're not chasing it. You're just letting it be. If you lose your erection, that's fine. Or you don't get an erection, that's fine. And you set a timer, and you use that as a meditation, and it's a way to deeply connect and be sensual without having to go anywhere. I don't know if that makes sense, but those are ways of stretching our sexuality, and you put a time limit on them. So you may make love your normal way 9 times, and then on the 10th time you say, okay, we're going to do an infinity practice. I mean, you set a timer, 15 minutes. And you just let yourself explore.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your practices.
See what happens. We have that.
So, more with David after this break.
Was that okay?
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment, a philanthropic organization. Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hi, this is Julie Geigel.
And I'm Susan Schuler.
And I'm Carrie Ann Larson.
And we are
the Psychic Angel Channelers
from Angel Talk Tuesday.
Tune in every week at 10 a.m. Eastern on OMTimesRadio.com.
The angels have heard your call and are here to help.
Are you ready to receive?
Bathe in a beautiful vibrational frequency to help you heal, expand, and remember your magnificence with Angel Talk Tuesday.
There is no death, only a change of worlds. Chief Seattle. Deborah Livingston is an award-winning intuitive psychic medium whose international services include mediumship, spiritual assessment, animal communication, and spiritual mentoring. She is a published author and a trained shaman. Deborah provides evidential messages from spirit and departed loved ones. Learn more at deblivemedium.com. That's DEBLIV medium.com.
I want to thank my mommy for loving me so much,
for taking me to the doctor when I broke my foot,
for leaving me alone when I wanted to be alone.
And now, as a grown-up, I'm thankful for being able to take care of you, my dear mom, for taking you to your therapies, for understanding that sometimes you simply want to be alone.
Roles change without us noticing. That's why AARP gives you the information to provide even better care for your loved one. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
And welcome to Arrow's Evolution. This is where sexuality and spirituality meet. Well, with David Bruce Leonard, and he is an acupuncturist, topical plant medicine specialist, martial artist, and author. He's written the book How to Worship the Goddess and Keep Your Balls, A Man's Guide to Sacred Sex. And don't laugh at the title. I actually really love this book. And as he was beginning to explain to us just now, he has infinity practices in his book, and they will definitely be able to help you connect with your sexual arousal, use sex for therapeutic purposes. So, David, I'm very curious because in every episode I always ask my guests what they feel is the link between sex and spirit. So would you mind answering this question before we move on to other questions?
Oh, sure, of course. I don't think there's any difference. I don't think they're linked. I think they're the same thing. And sex isn't just intercourse or climax or ejaculation. Sex is what drives all of life. And so I think that sex and spirit are the same thing. Even if someone is celibate and a monk and meditating, I think that celibate monk is still doing a sexual practice. He's just doing it in a very specific way. Beautiful.
I love it. Yeah, when I started doing this radio show, I really didn't understand the link between the two. What I only knew was from what people talked about in Tantra. For the longest time, sex and spirit to me was separate. And I'm learning more and more each time I have different guests on. And so I really appreciate your perspective.
Yeah, and I think we need to expand what we think of as sex. I mean, sex is happening all around us right now. The bacteria on our skin are having sex. They're reproducing. All the plants around us, the forests, our neighbors. The sex is what drives biological life, and I think it's sacred. So.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to other questions. In your work, you talk about the concepts of how to resolve personal and sexual trauma. How do you feel sacred sexuality and self-defense actually help to resolve personal trauma?
Well, I think this is sort of cutting-edge research that I've been doing. I mean, other people are doing, and I've been looking up. We have two parts to our nervous system. There's sympathetic and parasympathetic, and the sympathetic is run by norepinephrine or adrenaline. And trauma is always created, as far as I can tell, in a high adrenaline state. So when we're traumatized, either physically or psychologically, our body is flooded with adrenaline. And my observation is that women that have been sexually traumatized as children one of two things tends to happen. I'm just generalizing. One way they cope with it is that they shut their sexuality down. They become sex negative. They don't have sex because it reminds them of the sexual trauma as children or as young women. On the other hand, some women, when they're sexually traumatized as children, will globalize their sexuality. They become very promiscuous and they become hypersexual. And I think there's two ways to resolve trauma. Well, there's probably more than two ways, but there's two ways that I'm aware of that we work with. One way, for somebody that globalizes their sexuality, is they tend to gravitate more towards Tantra and Taoist practices. And what they do is you create a parasympathetic state, a very relaxed environment. So that person would be more inclined to go towards Tantra or hypnosis or meditation or ways just to relax. Because when somebody's sexually traumatized, they have a hypervigilance, and we can relax that vigilance. That's one way of doing it. But another way of doing it is to create a high adrenaline state. It's kind of the opposite. But we do that we create a high adrenaline state, but we do it in sacred space. So we create a ritual sacred space, and then we recreate the trauma, or we create a scenario of the trauma in a very safe environment, and we give the body a different physical outcome. So I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Peter Levine.
Yeah.
He's a psychologist, yeah, but he does something very similar. He will recreate a scenario where the trauma occurred and then resolve it. And that's what we do with our self-defense classes. We recreate traumas, but we allow the body to have a different physical outcome. So if you were if a woman was assaulted as a young girl, we recreate the scenario or the trauma of that assault in very safe space, and then the body finds its way out. Usually, because our self-defense classes are very aggressive, so the person will fight their way out of that scenario. So we have a female instructor who's there watching, and then a male instructor, usually he's in the suit, and we team up and we recreate the scenario that caused the trauma, and it's profoundly healing. I mean, women will come through that with tremendous, not only are they learning self-defense, but their limbic system has found, the trauma is lodged in the limbic system, and the limbic system has found a new way out of the dilemma, because when people are traumatized, their limbic system is always trying to find a way out. So if you give the body a solution to the trauma, the hypervigilance relaxes. Those are two ways I can think of that we can help resolve trauma. And it's not to say that other methods aren't important too, like therapy and stuff. But yeah.
No, I really love what you're saying. It's very, very profound. And so this is the basis of your creation of Rivers of Love for Sacred Years and fast events for your sacred your self-protection classes that you're doing. So this is the basis of your work.
Yes, I created Rivers of Love, but I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, go on.
Okay. I created Rivers of Love, but I didn't create Fast Defense. Fast Defense, the original form of Fast Defense was created by a man named Matt Thomas. And he was half Japanese, half Caucasian, and he was an orphan in Japan after World War II, and he was repeatedly sexually assaulted when he was in an orphanage, and so the work came out of his own experience from being raped, and so that work comes from Matt Thomas.
Beautiful. So I really appreciate all the gems that you're sharing with me. I'll definitely look up his work. What do you feel are the major differences between male and female from a Daoist perspective? We began to talk about the differences earlier in the show, but can you think of any other major ones?
Yeah, so from a Daoist perspective, men are yang on the outside, but yin on the inside. So men are hard on the outside, but soft on the inside, vulnerable on the inside. And women are yin on the outside, but yang on the inside. They're soft and vulnerable on the outside, but very strong on the inside. And, I said before that a woman's negative pole is in her pelvis, and a man's negative pole is in his chest. So women tend to shut down from the knees to the navel. They tend to shut down their pelvis. Men tend to shut down from the neck to the navel. They tend to shut down their chest. So, and in Chinese medicine, the pelvis is power, but also security. So the feminine, in order to gain power, needs to feel very secure. the masculine is the negative pole, the vulnerabilities in the chest. And the chest is esteem and also grief. So men's healing is in the chest, and they need to both feel their grief. Men need to grieve, but also the masculine needs to be admired. So we have a saying that women need to be desired, men need to be admired. So if I'm with a partner who has a feminine essence, I want to create as much security and stability for her as I can so that she can feel powerful. And if somebody is with a person with a masculine orientation, we need to build him up and to be proud of him, to admire him.
So these are some of the major
differences. Does that make
differences.
sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I'm just reflecting on how, in a past relationship, I would admire the man because I assume that it's because men are just full of ego and they need to feel that their woman has their back. However, I think sometimes it's not reciprocal. So what advice do you have for people who feel that they've done all the things that seems to be right, but yet they're not getting the outcomes that they desire? So that's my question, and we'll explore more after the break.
Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting with your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and tap into that innate potential you have to transform your life and fly high. Please join me, your host Monica Goyal, every Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific. Namaste.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
And welcome to the last 15 minutes of today's show. And we are talking about how to worship the goddess and keep your balls with David Bruce Leonard. And you can find him at sacredriversoflove.com. Just before the break, I was asking David about the male-female differences that we have. And even when we try to do what we feel our partner needs, sometimes we don't get back what we want for ourselves. And what advice he has for us.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, the first, okay, so I think that a relationship is a path. It's a yoga. And the And I think that the only time we fail in relationship is if we don't get our lessons, if we don't learn our lessons. So it's a practice. It's not, it's not like we find the perfect person and that's it forever. I think that my relationships are only failures if I didn't learn my lessons, because then I have to learn them again. I believe anytime we feel emotional pain, I call that tuition. Tuition is what we pay when we go to school. And wherever I feel emotional pain, it's tuition. And I can, so I've paid the tuition, I've felt the pain. Now the question is, do I get the education or not? If I don't get the education, I'm going to have to pay the tuition again. So that's one piece, is thinking of our relationships not as failures, but as learning tools. It's graduate school. And then the other thing is picking the right partner. And picking the right partner means being the right partner. And we can do everything right, and still it doesn't work. It can still not work. And we don't know until we have the courage to step in. So just because we try something and it doesn't work doesn't mean that it's not a good strategy. It just means that perhaps our timing was off, or we picked the wrong partner, or that was just the education we needed at that time. We bring so much of our shadow into relationship, and there's so many variables that, So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my take on those things. It's basically about doing our work.
Beautiful. Thank you. What you're essentially saying is don't give up, and do not be so hard on ourselves, and to keep going, because it's not just about not giving up, keep going, but also taking the time to reflect on the lessons so that we can be better people.
Yeah, and it also means not jumping into the next relationship right away. Take a break. Do your work, I mean, in the book I say, what kind of person do you want to be with? And you have a list, and then answer those questions. Are you that kind of person? Do you want somebody who's kind and considerate, but are you nasty when you get angry, So I think that, and this is what Jody and I, my partner and I, teach in when we do our coaching and our couple sessions, is how not to let adrenaline run our lives. How do we not let adrenaline? Because if we're angry, if we're adrenalized, that is not the time we want to negotiate. Jody and I have very specific tools for how to become de-adrenalized. I'm sure, I don't know, I have, and you've probably experienced this, when you're in a fight with a partner and you're arguing and you're just waiting for them to take a breath so you can say what you want to say, and we're not listening. When we're adrenalized, we can't listen. We are neurologically, we can't hear things. When policemen are adrenalized in gunfights, they can't hear. When we're adrenalized with our partner in a fight, we can't hear. And, that is not the time to make decisions about a relationship when we're triggered. So some of it, a big part of relationships is navigating our own nervous system. Knowing when to keep our mouth shut, when to walk away, take a break, come back later when we're not adrenalized. And Jody and I have very specific tools that we teach couples so they can learn to do this together.
Beautiful. And how can people find out about your workshops and retreats?
Well, we have different. They can go to sacredriversoflove.com, which is one word, sacredriversoflove.com, and we have classes there. There's different levels of classes. There's the erotic bodywork, the aroused bodywork for couples. Each of those classes also involves doing emotional integrity work. In our Rivers of Love classes, couples stay together. Nobody's swapping. So I work with my partner Jody, and she works with me, and we're only working with each other. So in the classes, couples come in and they watch what we're doing and then they do it. We create a very safe container. We pride ourselves on creating a very safe container for couples. And the emotional integrity work, the emotional intelligence work is about, because being a good lover is important, but a good relationship takes so much more than that. We have to be the kind of person we would want to be in relationship with, the kind of person that does their work, the kind of person that is willing to listen, the kind of person that's willing to self-confront and to allow all of our partner into the relationship, not just the parts that we like. And deciding, is this the right person for me? Maybe it's not the right person. Now, Jody and I also do couples retreats where people come to Hawaii, come to Maui, we put them up, and then we work with them on communication, on sacred sexuality in a very safe space, and teach them how to listen to each other, how to soften their belly, how to do body work on each other, and how to become the kind of people that, how can I become the kind of partner that Jody will be proud of? And how can she become the kind of partner that I will be proud of? And it's hard work. It's not easy. There's no quick fixes, but it's very, very nourishing work. So those are our private consultations and our classes. Jody, my partner Jody Baygood, is an expert in gender communication. She's certified by Allison Armstrong as an expert in gender communication. So she understands the differences between the masculine and the feminine in those communication pieces. And she's also a certified orgasmic meditation instructor, OM instructor. So she also teaches that. So I have Chinese medicine and rivers of love. She has Allison Armstrong's work on orgasmic meditation, and she's also a very powerful coach. So we bring a lot to the table for our classes.
That's fantastic. Do you have any upcoming projects that you would like to share with listeners?
Not at the moment. Well, actually, I have because I'm an herbalist. I have herbal projects coming up. I don't have any sacred sexuality projects coming up at the moment. We are doing our custom classes here on Maui. Trying to think. I am planning on. I just got back from Berlin, and I did. I taught at Explore Berlin, which is a BDSM conference in Berlin, and I taught Sacred Yes, Sacred No. Fantastic conference. Explore is wonderful. Felix Ruckert runs it, and it's awesome. Felix and Delta, and they do an incredible job. And there's also, we're talking about doing Explore next year in Europe, and that'll be either Explore Berlin or Explore in Rome. So those will be coming up next year. Oh, and I just remembered, I'm sorry, yes, I'm going to be teaching in Boulder, Colorado, I believe in March. We'll be doing Rivers of Love Sacred Sexuality classes in Boulder, Colorado, next March.
Great. So thank you so much for coming on to today's show. I really appreciate you and all your wisdom, and really appreciate how you've reached out to me first and sent me your book, which really opened up my eyes to all the fantastic work and background and training that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and the book is available on Amazon. It's called How to Worship the Goddess and Keep Your Balls.
So please also, for listeners out there, to go to David's website, Sacred Rivers of Love, one word, and you can subscribe to his mailing list, and I did so just before the show. It's a beautiful website.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. And so next week we have another guest. We're going to be with John Guzman, and he is based in UK, and he's going to be talking about getting in touch with yourself. He will be discussing about how we get disconnected from ourselves in the modern society, and this comes from external sources such as our parents, people close to us, and society in general. He has been on a personal journey of self-discovery, and he'll be sharing his experiences as well as to explain what it is that we can do to achieve in our own lives. He talks about his dark experiences with addiction, anger avoidance, bereavement, denial, despair, divorce, disconnection from his body, depression, emotional anorexic, and you definitely want to tune into Arrow's Evolution next week. So have a good week, and stay tuned, and be well. So this has been Dr. Martha Tara Lee of Arrow's Coaching.